Have you ever wondered why some people exhaust you even though you love them? Why the harder you try to hold on, the more you feel yourself slipping away? Why staying silent feels like drowning, yet speaking changes nothing? There is a language we have forgotten, a language that speaks not through words, but through weariness, through distance, through the slow, unbearable weight of carrying someone who no longer carries you. What if the exhaustion you feel is not a sign of your failure? What if it is a sign of something far deeper, a call you have not yet dared to answer? God speaks to his servant not only through words, but also through silence. When you find yourself trapped in a situation and cannot escape it, perhaps God is not answering the question you ask. Rather, he is answering the deeper question you do not yet have the courage to ask. Does this person belong to me, or am I meant to let them go? And if you resist this question, God does not come with an answer. He comes with exhaustion. Exhaustion is not merely the body's fatigue, it is the soul's wrinkle. When you constantly have to explain yourself, the person you are explaining to is not truly hearing you. When you constantly have to forgive, that heart does not deserve to remain beside you. When you constantly stay silent, it is because you know that speaking would end everything. These are God's languages, but this language does not speak in words. It speaks in weariness. And every time you fall silent, God slowly draws you further from that person. Therefore, you must ask yourself, am I still carrying this exhausting person out of divine loyalty, or am I deceiving myself? According to wisdom, God sometimes teaches his servant not through love, but through depletion, because the servant does not easily let go of what they have become accustomed to. But if what you are accustomed to takes you away from God, then God does not create conflict. He creates silence. And if you listen to this silence, letting go becomes easier. But if you still resist, you diminish a little more each day. At first, you only say, I am tired. But then you realize this tiredness is not only yours. You are carrying their emotion. You are calming their anger. You are easing their tension. You are interpreting their silence. And in the end, you carry the burden of both them and yourself. That is the moment God is warning you. But this warning does not come through words. It comes through the weight on your shoulders. When God wants to take something from you, he makes it heavy. What once came easily now sits like a stone inside you. The conversations have become draining. Words are exhausting. Even their glances no longer bring you peace. Yet you still say, I must be patient. You still say, this is a test. You still wait with the hope that perhaps things will improve, and in that moment, God is drawing you away from yourself, because you are still not calling out to God. You are only trying to save that person. But forget this. Sometimes the person you are trying to save is drowning you. According to spiritual wisdom, everything carries a sign, and the heart that cannot read these signs repeats itself. You encounter the same people. You form the same sentences. You live through the same conflicts. And each time you ask, why is it always me? The answer is simple, because you are still protecting yourself, not the heart God is trying to protect. You still want them to stay, but God wants you to stay. He wants you to remain inside yourself, to keep your heart standing, to not shatter your spirit. This is why if someone constantly exhausts you, this is not a test, it is a sign. But we cling to habits, not to signs. We cling to the emptiness we have become accustomed to, not to love. Because the heart struggles to let go of what it knows. Yet God teaches most powerfully by shaking our habits. When love becomes a mirage. If you love someone but can no longer feel their light, then that love was not given to you. It was merely a form, a surface. And the warning here is sharp. Behind every form lies either light or shadow. If you are still clinging to shadow, the light moves away from you. How does this distance occur? Your prayers change. Inside, you no longer want that person, yet you cannot erase their name. Being together is not enough. Being apart only grows the emptiness. This is precisely how God speaks to you. He does not abandon you, but He wants you to let go, because some forms only transform into mercy when you release your grip on them. Sometimes separation, breaking away, and distance may look like loss from the outside, but in spiritual wisdom, some breakings are another language of coming closer. When you move away from someone, you actually free yourself from the illusion hidden within their form. And now you begin to see not them, but yourself again. Because when you were with them, you were not just carrying a person. You were carrying an incompleteness within yourself. The first gift of separation. You had grown accustomed to their existence, to thinking of them, to being patient with them, to trying to fix them. But you had forgotten yourself. Every moment with them, you silenced a voice inside you. That voice is now echoing. It says, I am still here. You felt it when they were gone. The greatest loneliness was while they were still present. Now there is silence, but it is full, because you are no longer alone. You are close to yourself. And this closeness is the most open doorway to divine mercy. While you were clinging to someone, perhaps you were turning your back to the divine, but now you walk without leaning on anything, and with each step, lightness descends on your shoulders, because now you're not carrying the weight, you are being carried. God sometimes protects His servant not by leaving them, but by withdrawing everyone else. And this withdrawal is not your destruction. It is the beginning of your construction. The day you distance yourself from that person, you become a different heart. A heart that knows its limits, that listens to its silence, that can wait in peace. If that person still does not return, know that their leaving is more beneficial than your staying. You prayed for them to return, perhaps, but God gave you not their return. He gave you your transformation. You prayed, save me, and they saved you. But you are still grieving what it means to be saved. Forget this. Sometimes liberation looks like abandonment. Sometimes someone is not taken from you, but the distance between you slowly widens. God gives you time because He knows you so well. If He tore you away suddenly, you would shatter. If you faced it all at once, your heart would break. He sees this before you do. This is why He does not take them away suddenly. Instead, He cools their closeness, shortens their words, increases the moments that bring you no comfort, and gradually wears down your patience, your attention, your inner strength. Because God sometimes does not cut you off suddenly. He slowly lets you fade. And if you still do not understand, He gives you that exhaustion. But if despite that exhaustion you still say, I must endure, then no remedy comes to you, because God has already begun to withdraw from your life what you needed to let go of. When you cannot see or hear, when God calls His servant to Himself, but the servant is still looking at another person, they look but do not see, they hear but do not listen. You are still trying to reach them, But as they move away, something feels like it is disappearing. Or perhaps what is actually disappearing is not them. It is the light God placed upon that person. Because every human carries a light within them. But you loved not their light. You loved their form. That form is now empty inside, and if you stay there, that emptiness will pull you in too. Some people exhaust you because they are like mirrors, and in that mirror you see not only them, but your own incompleteness, though you do not realize it. You wait for them to love you, to understand you, to feel for you, to care for you. But God is drawing you away from their care, because you are still standing on the strength of their attention. And when a servant becomes so dependent on another servant's attention, God intervenes, because in that heart he no longer wishes to share himself. So he either makes them indifferent or turns them cold to you or turns you cold to them. But in every case, he wants to protect you. Every weariness is a sign in spiritual wisdom. Every exhaustion is a sign. If you are depleted not just in body but in spirit, this is not a test. It is an invitation to transformation. Because some people do not merely enter your life. They occupy your interior, and you no longer live with their presence. You live with their weight. If you do not speak, you feel you will break. But if you do speak, nothing changes anyway. The same sentence circles inside you. Why am I so exhausted? And if you have stopped asking this even to yourself, then that person has become a veil for you. A veil does not stand before your eyes. It stands within your heart. If you still believe that person will do you good, but nothing good comes anymore, then that belief is delusion. And we cannot reach truth without leaving delusion. If that person no longer supports you, if you are no longer even being supported, if they have become a weight to you, if your silence brings no relief because you are screaming inside even as you stay silent, know this. This relationship has moved from the realm of mercy to the realm of harm. And God does not leave you there. But if you still remain, he withdraws from you, not from you personally, but into silence. And that is where the deepest loneliness begins. The conflict has ended, but peace has not come, because you are still here. They are still here. But God is absent. This emptiness is not abandonment. It is an opportunity, the path back to wholeness. If you stop expecting God from that person, God draws near to your heart again. If you stop making a human your source, your interior returns to the true source, and then exhaustion is replaced by lightness, because the weight is no longer being carried. It is released. Do you know when a person feels most exhausted? When they still want something, but that something no longer exists in that person. Your exhaustion comes from this. You are still treating that person as your own, but God has drawn them to himself, and you are now clinging to only a shadow. So exhaustion is not born from a person. It is born from the collapse of a fantasy. This is why it hurts, but it also liberates. And then one morning, without realizing it, you pray, God, I am content. In that moment, the bond you thought was unbreakable unravels on its own. When you hear their name, your heart no longer tightens. When you close your eyes, they are no longer there, because their place has been taken by divine peace. And then you understand, God did not save you from that person. He saved you from the burden that person created. When a form is taken, when God takes a form from you, a door to truth opens. And if you enter through that door, no one remains behind you, because everyone who exhausted you was actually God's way of drawing you to Himself. Sometimes the person who constantly exhausted you is your greatest medicine, but only after they are gone. Because some people make you sick when they stay and heal you when they leave. And God prepares this healing slowly, just as He slowly broke you. And finally, remember this: if the person who constantly exhausts you does not leave, perhaps you need to release them from your heart first, because what does not leave the heart does not leave life. And sometimes God is only waiting for your permission. So pray this prayer: God, I do not want to keep in my heart anyone who is not close to you. And then wait, because after this prayer, either that person improves or they withdraw. Both are mercy. Both draw you closer to God.